Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari. Yashoda Nandana Jaya Vraja Janaranjana. Yashoda Nandana Jaya Vraja Janaranjana. Jamuna Tira Bonachari. Jamuna Tira Bonachari. Jamuna Tira Bonachari. Jamuna Tira Bonachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari. Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana. Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana. Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana. Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana. Jamuna Tira Bonachari. Jamuna Tira Bonachari. Jamuna Tira Bonachari. Jamuna Tira Bonachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari. 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 Jai Sri Sri Radha Madhava Ki Jai. Jai Sri Sri Radha Vrindavan Chandra Ki Jai. Jai Sri Sri Radha Damodara Ki Jai. Jai Sri Sri Radha Giridhari Ki Jai. Jai Sri Sri Radha Madan Mohan Ki Jai. Jai Sri Sri Radha Govinda Ki Jai. Jai Sri Sri Radha Shama Sundar Ki Jai. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna, it's our great fortune to have amongst us His Grace Vaiyasaki Prabhu. Prabhuji's brief introduction. Internationally recognized for his musical abilities to perform the ancient art form of Kirtan and Bhajan, His Grace Vaiyasaki Prabhu provides a rare opportunity to experience a taste of authentic devotional music from the Vedic tradition. Though born in London, England, he came of age in Winnipeg, Canada. After many years in the music business and a personal search for the divine, he is now one of the premier singers on the Kirtan circuit. Starting out as a rock and blues guitarist with a penchant for singing, his taste for Indian culture came at an early age. By 1970, he found himself back in London and enamored by Krishna devotion. Soon in 1973, he was committed to the path of devotion or Bhakti Yoga, and just 2 years later, he received formal initiation from His Divine Grace Abhay Charanarvinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. On his Guru's request, he journeyed to India in 1975 to proclaim the renaissance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Bhakti movement. He traveled the entire subcontinent and Southeast Asia, serving the mission of Bhakti Yoga. By 1978, he arrived in Bangladesh, where he imbibed the culture through his pores, becoming fluent in Bengali and learning the ways of the local people. On a boat trip down the Meghna River, he chanced upon a local kirtan band on their way to a festival. Deciding to follow these happy minstrels and their soulful kirtan music, he would also attend that same festival, changing his life forever. It was there that he discovered the ancient Bengali art of Raga Kirtan, which touched his soul in the deepest possible way. Never before had he heard such angelic singing, and he resolved to use his own considerable vocal talents to spread this technique around the world. He returned to London with his own style of kirtan, a blend of ancient Bengali and modern contemporary music. His first album was released in 1982, followed by numerous CDs, which are now considered seminal in the yoga or kirtan or world music universe. Today, he is much sought after performer, conducting workshops, doing concerts, and leading yoga festivals and retreats worldwide. Sharing his heart through music and chanting is the basis of his life. He has delighted audiences and taught Bhakti Yoga in 64 countries with people from all walks of life and cultures, and performs his music with a mission to uplift the consciousness of the planet. His considerable knowledge of the vast repertoire of Indian bhajans and kirtans has provided the foundation for a new generation of artists in the flourishing genre of music for yoga and mantra meditation. His CDs include The Way of Love, Charan Kamal, Kirtan Ras, Harinam Ananda, Transcendence, Vrindavan Chandra, Chaitanya Chandra, Rathayatra USA, The Turning Point, Best of Vaiyasaki, Shri Krishna Divyanam, The Beautiful Divine Name, and Kirtan Explosion, High Energy Kirtans. So it's our great fortune to have Prabhuji amongst us. Let's welcome Prabhuji by loudly chanting once Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Thank you very much. Today is the auspicious appearance of celebration day of Raghunath Das Goswami and Krishnadasa Kaviraja Goswami. So Raghunath Das Goswami is one of the famous 6 Goswamis, and Krishnadasa Goswami, he is the author of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. So the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishnadasa Kaviraj wanted to write about the later pastimes, the Antya Leela pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because the earlier pastimes had already been written by Vrindavan Das Thakur, but Vrindavan Das Thakur didn't touch on the later pastimes. So Srila Krishnadasa Kaviraj Goswami, he had this desire to write about and record for the history all of the Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's later pastimes. In order to do this, he prayed to Lord Nityananda to be empowered to do this service. And he was able to do this service. He went to Vrindavan. He was living in Sri Vrindavan Dham because most of Lord Chaitanya's senior followers, like the six Goswamis and others, had gone to Vrindavan to re-establish the holy places of Sri Krishna's pastimes. So Krishnadasa Kaviraja was also there, and Raghunath Das Goswami was also there. So there's a relationship between Raghunath Das Goswami and Krishnadasa Goswami, because Raghunath Das was in Puri, and he witnessed most of the Anchalila pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So when Krishnadasa Kaviraj wanted to write about them, then he got all his information, pastimes and anecdotes from Raghunath Das Goswami. So although Krishnadasa Kaviraj Goswami wrote this, it was Raghunath Das who gave him so much personal information that he had experienced and seen while in the association of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Therefore, at the end of every chapter, Krishnadasa Kaviraj Goswami writes, Sri Rupa Raghunath. He glorifies Rupa Goswami and Raghunath Goswami. By his mercy, I am writing this Chaitanya Charitamrita. So here, this chapter in the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Anchalila, numbers, volume 6. So here, in the first shloka, by the way, this chapter is entitled Lord Chaitanya Meets Raghunath Das Goswami, because Raghunath Das Goswami first met the associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which we'll explain later. So let's just recite this shloka, and then we'll go into the histories of Raghunath Das and also Krishnadasa Kaviraj Goswami. Kripa Gunarya Kogridanda Kapad Udritya. Oh, you can see it? Is it there? Okay, go ahead. Udritya Bhangya Raghunatha Dasam Nyasya Swarupe Vidadein Tarvangam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mamum Prapadye Kripa Gunaryak Kagriganda Kopad Udritya Bhangya Raghunatha Dasam Nasya Swarupe Vidajantarangam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mamum Pradadye Kripa Gunerya Kagriganda Kopad Udritya Bhangya Raghunatha Dasam Nyasya Swarupe Vedadantarangam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mamum Prapadye. Kripa Gunai, by the ropes of causeless mercy. Ya hu kugriha, of contemptible family life. Andakupat, from the blind well. Udritya, having raised. Bhangya, by a trick. Raghunath Dasam, Raghunath Das Goswami. Nyasya, giving over. Svarupe, to Swarup Damodar Goswami. Vidade, made. Anta Angam, one of his personal associates. Sri Krishna Chaitanyam, unto Lord Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Unto him, Prapadye, I offer my obeisances. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. With the ropes of his causeless mercy, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu employed a trick to deliver Raghunath Das Goswami from the blind well of contemptible family life. He made Raghunath Das Goswami one of his personal associates, placing him under the charge of Swarup Damodar Goswami. I offer my obeisances unto him. So here, we're seeing that Krishnadasa Kaviraja Goswami is saying that Sri Krishna Chaitanya delivered Raghunath Das Goswami from the blind well of family life. So he uses the word contemptible. So in other words, Raghunath Das Goswami would have been in a situation, if he hadn't been delivered by the Lord, in a grihastha situation that was unfavorable for spiritual life. Because his father, his name was Govinda Mazumdar, he was a wealthy landowner. And although he was dharmic, he was only partially dharmic. He was more focusing on his duties as a landholder and collecting taxes and doing that business. But from time to time, he would always have the Vaishnavas come to stay at his home. So Yadunandan Acharya, the Govinda Mazumdar, the father of Raghunath Das Goswami, he took shelter of Yadunandan Acharya, so he was his disciple. So Yadunandan Acharya was there while Raghunath Das was growing up. So he was hearing from him about Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Also, Haridas Thakur used to go visit that Govinda Mazumdar, the father of Raghunath Das Goswami, used to visit him also because he was a close associate of Yadunandan Acharya. So then Raghunath Das, he also got the lots of association of Haridas Thakur. So when he was 12 years old, then he decided he really wanted to give his life in service to the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Of course, he was too young to leave home. So the family, they could see that this young boy was very much attracted to spiritual life, and they were concerned that maybe he would take sannyas, he would leave the family, and they would never see him again. This is a concern of, even in the modern age, when devotees join ISKCON, some families are not too happy about that, because they're thinking we'll never see our son again. Because they want that their son should follow in the footsteps of the father. In other words, get married, have a family, take over the family business. This is the vision that every parent has for their children, at least for the boys. For the girls, they want them to marry someone who is of equal caste and also can join in with the business and be part of the family business and be very successful. So they would get wonderful grandchildren also from that side. So because this was the mood of the parents, that they want to keep the son in family life rather than go and surrender to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So therefore, Krishnadasa Kaviraja Goswami, he says that he was able to get away from contemptible family life. Contemptible means they didn't want him to go and surrender to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They wanted him to be a Vaishnava. He was a Vaishnava. His parents were Vaishnavas, but they weren't pure devotees. Raghunath Das Goswami wanted to be a pure devotee because by associating with his father's guru, Yadunandan Acharya, he heard so many stories and pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he became very excited and enthralled by these pastimes. And then taking the association of Haridas Thakur and hearing Haridas describe the glories of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So the young 12-year-old Raghunath Das Goswami decided, I really want to give my life to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And his parents could see that. And they didn't want him to give his life to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They wanted him to give his life to the family, which is normal amongst family members. So that's why Krishnadasa Kaviraj calls it contemptible family life. Now, if his father would have agreed to that and said, yes, go join Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and I'll come and visit you from time to time because I'm also a great follower, then that family life would not have been contemptible. That would have been glorious. That's the real family life, that the whole family surrenders to the Lord. But here, the family wasn't so surrendered. So Krishnadasa Kaviraj, he didn't have a good opinion of that family. So what happened was that when first Raghunath Das Goswami, he was living in Bengal, so he also had a lot of association with Nityananda Prabhu. And then he had association with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And when he came to see Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Gauranga put him under the care of Sarup Damodar Goswami. So Sarup Damodar Goswami was one of the most intimate associates of Lord Chaitanya. Sarup Damodar and Ramananda Rai. So therefore, being the servant of Sarup Damodar Goswami, Raghunath Das was there for all the intimate talks and pastimes and everything. So he had a wealth of knowledge as he was growing up. Now, when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went into transcendental fits of ecstatic love, this we know, it was exhibiting the Astasattvika Bhavas, then Raghunath Das and Sarup Damodar attended to him and satisfied him as he desired. So, because Sarup Damodar was the most intimate associate of Lord Chaitanya, he was always there. So even when Lord Chaitanya lost external consciousness, and so he would attend to him, and Raghunath Das was there to help. So Raghunath Das was there and saw all these pastimes. So Raghunath Das had been attempting to come to the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for a long time. And finally, he left his home and met the Lord. This is similar mood to another great Vaishnavacharya, Narottam Das Thakur. Narottam Das Thakur, he was also the son of a wealthy landowner, a Mazumdar. And so, although his family, they were Datta, but they were Mazumdars, Zamindars. They were vast landholders. And he also just wanted to surrender to Sri Gauranga Mahaprabhu. And the family, they could see that Narottam was so inclined and they wanted him to get married. So again, they were not favorable to him surrendering to the Lord. And he had to escape. So both Raghunath Das Goswami and Narottam Das Thakur, they had to come up with some plan to escape from the family and run away, so to see the Lord. So we have Raghunath Das Goswami. He was a little older, so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was still in Puri, so he escaped and went to Puri. Later, Narottam Das Thakur took his birth. Lord Chaitanya had already left the planet. So he escaped and went to Vrindavan to associate with the 6 Goswamis. So he associated with Raghunath Das Goswami there also, Narottam. And so he heard all the pastimes. Everybody heard all the pastimes from Raghunath Das Goswami, because he had been there for the Anjalila of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, an intimate associate as the servant of Sarup Damodar Goswami. So when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had gone to Shantipur on his way to Vrindavan, Raghunath Das Goswami had offered to dedicate his life at the Lord's lotus feet. So this is when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took sannyas. He was age 24. He, at the midnight during the full moon of what's that month? My mind went blank. Not Chaitra. What's before Chaitra? Falgun. Falgun Mas. So at full moon day, at midnight, he arose, left the house, went to Katwa, and took sannyas. Nityananda Prabhu was there, and Acharya Ratna and a few other devotees. And Lord Chaitanya shaved his head, took bath in the Ganga, and he went into ecstasies. Now, that if you ever go to Katwa, which is not that far from Mayapur, you just have to cross the Ganga to the Navadvip side, and you take a train for like 20-25 minutes up to Katwa. Because in Katwa, there's a temple there, and the hair of Sri Gauranga Mahaprabhu that they shaved off when he took sannyas, they kept it in a shrine. So, that 500-year-old hair of Mahaprabhu is still there. So then he wanted to go to Vrindavan immediately, Gauranga Mahaprabhu. And he was walking along the banks of the Ganga, and Nityananda could see that he was totally mad in ecstatic Krishna prema. So he said, I want to go to Vrindavan. So Nityananda Prabhu, he tricked him. He said, oh, well, look, here's the Jamuna. You're already there. This is the Jamuna. Just go this way here and we'll arrive very quickly. And he took him to Shantipur instead, to the house of Advaita Acharya. And who was there in Shantipur at Advaita Acharya's house? Raghunath Das Goswami. He had come. He was a young boy. And also Sachimata had come. It was arranged that Sachimata would be there. And when Lord Chaitanya saw his mother, he offered flat out dandavats, pranams at her lotus feet. And he said, please forgive me. I am your naughty son. I left without your permission and I took sannyas. And now what can I do? I can't go back. What's done is done. but you have given me this body. This body comes from you. So you please tell me where this body should reside. Of course, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he knows that he's spirit soul, but the body came from this mother. So the mother said, well, you can reside in Puri, because devotees from Navadvip, they always go to Puri, and I will always get news and hear about your pastimes there. So that's why Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to Puri, and he made it his residence, and he stayed there his whole life, except for when he was traveling. So, and Raghunath Das Goswami was also there at that time. So he witnessed that pastime with such Mata, and he was there with Nityananda Prabhu. So here in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, at that time, Raghunath Das Goswami had offered to dedicate his life at the Lord's lotus feet. But of course, he was too young to just leave the family and home and become a mendicant. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu recommended, look, you go back home, and externally you behave like a proper son, but internally you meditate on the Lord, on Radha and Krishna Seva, and when you get a little older, then you can come to meet with me. And this is the same instruction that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave to Rupa and Sanatana Goswamis. They were Dabir Kas and Shakar Malik. They were servants or ministers. They were high-ranking ministers in the Nawabs of government in Bengal. And so they were serving the Muslims, and they had Muslim names, but they felt bad because they had been brought up in Vaishnav family, Brahmin family. But the reason that they had become ministers because the Nawab had heard about their glories, about their intelligence, and how capable they were. And he sent a messenger to request them to come and be his ministers. And of course, they refused. And then the Nawab sent another messenger and said, yeah, you can either come here and become our ministers, or we can slaughter all your family members. Choice is yours. What choice did they have? They didn't want their family to be killed, so they came. But they weren't very happy, but they were doing that service. Then when they heard about Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and all his pastimes, how he was converting so many people, so they wrote him a letter. They sent a Brahmin with this letter to Puri to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And in this letter they explained, we were born in Brahmana families, but we are the most condemned because we are serving these milechas and these asuras who are totally against Vedic Dharma, who are totally against cow protection, and we're serving them and pushing on their mission. We have no choice, but we want to be delivered. You please come and deliver us. So they sent this letter. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he wrote a letter back and sent the Brahmin back with the letter. And he said, for the time being, you just stay in your posts as ministers, and you become like a wife who has a paramour. All day long, the wife is thinking of her paramour, but she's doing her household duties so paka that her husband will never know that she's thinking of someone else. That was the example Mahaprabhu gave. So it's the same example. You pretend to be part of the external situation, but internally you're completely surrendered to the Lord. So that's the same instruction he gave to Raghunath Das Goswami and Rupa and Sanatana. So Raghunath Das had offered to dedicate his life at the Lord's lotus feet, but in the meantime, however, a Muslim official became envious of Hiranyadas, who was Raghunath Das Goswami's uncle, and induced some big official court minister to have him arrested. So Raghunath Das's uncle was arrested. Thus, Hiranya Das left his home, but by the intelligence of Raghunath Das, the misunderstanding was mitigated. So Raghunath Das went back to his family, and he was extremely intelligent, and he came up with a plan how to free his uncle, and that was satisfied, and his uncle was given his freedom. Then Raghunath Das went to Panihati. There was a big festival in Panihati, the Panihati Chiradoi festival, and there he met Nityananda Prabhu. So Raghunath Das, he went to Panihati, and following the order of Nityananda Prabhu, he observed the Chiradoi Mahotsava festival by distributing rice mixed with yogurt, chipped rice. We say flat rice, but somehow or other Prabhupada's saying chipped rice. I don't know why. But it's poha, right? So when Raghunath Das first came to Panihati and he saw the festival going on, Nityananda Prabhu was organizing everything, and Nityananda Prabhu saw Raghunath Das at a distance. And he called him. He said, "What are you doing standing far away like a thief? You come and be part of this festival." Then he understood that, you come from a rich family. You should get the funds and donate all the ingredients that are necessary to make this a grand Mahotsava. So in this way, Nityananda Prabhu engaged Raghunath Das Goswami at that Panihati festival. The day after the festival, Nityananda Prabhu gave Raghunath Das the blessing that he would very soon attain the shelter of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Because Raghunath Das explained to him, this is wonderful. I love doing this seva to the Vaishnavas. I have surrendered my heart to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I'm only thinking of him. And Lord Nityananda gave him the blessing, Ashirvad, that very soon, just wait, very soon you will get the association of and the shelter of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So after this incident in Panihati, Raghunath Das, with the help of his family priest, the Purohit of the family, he was to do all the puja for the family, whose name was Yadunandan Acharya. So Yadunandan Acharya was also the guru of the family, and he was the Purohit. So he made everything very spiritual for that family. So by the help of Yadunandan Acharya, Raghunath Das got out of his house by using trickery and thus ran away. But he didn't take the general path. In those days, just like these days, you have a general road, a highway. If you want to go from Mumbai to Pune, you take the regular road. So there was a regular road from Navadvip to Puri, but he didn't take that regular road because he knew that once his father had understood that he had run away, he would send guards on horses and they would find him and bring him back. So he went through the forest. This is the same with Narottam Das Thakur later when he escaped from his family and went to Vrindavan. He also didn't take the normal road but went through the forest. So not touching the general path, Raghunath Das Goswami secretly went to Jagannath Puri. And after 12 days of walking, he arrived in Jagannath Puri and came to the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In those days, there was no cars, no train, no buses. And if you didn't know how to ride a horse, you walked. So all the Vaishnavas, they walked. So it took him 12 days to walk from Navadvip to Jagannath Puri. I wonder how long it would take us to walk that distance. Because when you take the train, it's 12 hours by train. It's an overnight train, but it's going very, very fast. And if you're walking, then you get tired, you have to eat, you have to sleep, you have to take care of your body. 12 days, so he was rushing. He was really rushing. So then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu entrusted Raghunath Das Goswami to Sarup Damodar Goswami. Therefore, another name for Raghunath Das Goswami is Svaruper Raghu. So, in those days, everyone had a written nickname. So Raghunath Das Goswami, his pet name, what they used to call him, was Raghu. Narottam, his pet name was Noru. But we don't use that because out of respect we honor them. But for the seniors at that time, because they were juniors, so he became Swarupa Raghu. He's the Raghu of Swarup Damodar Goswami. For 5 days, Raghunath Das Goswami took prasadam in the temple of Lord Jagannath. So for 5 days, he only ate Jagannath Mahaprasad. But later, he became so renounced that he would stand at the Simgadwara gate and eat only whatever he could gather by begging alms. So instead of going in and getting the Mahaprasad, he would stand outside the gate, and when people came out with the Mahaprasad that they had purchased, and he would beg, Now, I've been in Puri, and if you beg a little Mahaprasad, everyone will give you. They'll put in your hand. Even when the servants are carrying the Mahaprasad to someone's home, that someone has ordered the Mahaprasad, as those servants are going by, you just say, oh, Kripa Koro, Kripa Koro. They give you a little Mahaprasad. Because everybody in Puri, they understand that there's no difference between Jagannath and Jagannath Mahaprasad. Because in Jagannath Puri, all the pots are put on the altar. So even the pots are Jagannath Mahaprasad. So people would break off little pieces of pot and keep them. They would grind it and then take like that also. Madhavendra Puri, he was like that. That was his mood. So he would just beg for Mahaprasad. So he became very renounced. He didn't want to go in. No, he came from a very wealthy family. But it's very interesting. Both he and Narottam came from a wealthy family. So they understood that wealth does not solve any of your problems in life. Everything is still there. All the problems in material life are still there, even though you're very wealthy. There's only one problem that wealth solves, and that is that you have the ability to pay your debts. That's the only benefit. It's the only benefit. No other benefit. You still have the adibhotik klesh, adidaivik klesh, the mind, everything. So therefore, it was very easy for him to become a mendicant because he knew wealthy life, being a crorepati, that doesn't mitigate any problems in life. People who are poor, they don't know that. They're experiencing the same klesh that the rich people are experiencing, but they're thinking it's because I'm poor. And if I get money, then I'll be happy. This is a complete misconception. So it's much easier for wealthy people to understand that if I take shelter of the Lord, I'm going to be benefited. And then the money can't not really protect me. So Raghunath Das Goswami, he was living by just begging for Mahaprasad. But later, he lived by taking alms from various chatras, or food distributing centers. So not only he would get from people coming out of the temple, but then he would go to where they were distributing Mahaprasad, and he would say, can I have a little? And because nowadays, if you go to Puri, they'll give you, I'm sure that 500 years ago they were even more kind and more generous. So he was living like that. Now, Raghunath's father finally received news that his Raghu had run away and he was in Puri now, and he was at the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu under the shelter of Sarup Damodar Goswami, and that his son was just begging to get food. So the father didn't like that, because when you're kind of wealthy, when you have so much wealth, you become a little puffed up. And for a wealthy person to beg, they don't feel right to do like that. So he was thinking that this is not good reputation for my family, that my son is begging food. Because in India, even today, the family's only concerned is how my children are doing. It's very difficult for them to say to their friends and neighbors, oh, my son joined Hare Krishna. He's now a brahmachari. It doesn't, that's not what they want to say. They want to say, yes, he's doing very well. He has a great business. He's making so much money, beautiful wife, so many children. That's what they want to tell their friends. They don't want to say he renounced and joined Hare Krishna and he's out on the streets distributing books. So no parent likes that. So Raghunath Das Goswami's parent also didn't like that. So understanding that Raghunath Das Goswami was begging from the Kshatras, his father sent men and money. Here's money, here's some servants, they'll take care of you, lead a proper life. But Raghunath Das, he refused to accept the money. This is a real Vaishnava. I don't want the money. I'm not going to take shelter of the money. I'm not going to take shelter of help from the family. These are the fallible soldiers. I'm just going to take shelter of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When he got sick, he didn't say, I'm taking shelter of medicine. I'm going to take shelter of the Mahamantra. So this is Raghunath Das Goswami. He takes shelter of the Lord only. So when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu understood that Raghunath Das Goswami had refused the money and was just begging prasad from the different chatras that were distributing prasad, then Gauranga Mahaprabhu presented him with his own Gunjamala that he had received and a Govardhan Shila that he had received when he was in Govardhan Hill. So thereafter, Raghunath Das Goswami used to eat rejected food that he had collected and washed. So now Raghunath Das Goswami is becoming even more renounced. That, sometimes you get a leaf plate, Jagannath Mahaprasad, and you can't finish it. So you put it down. So he would collect the prasad that people had eaten from and couldn't finish. And he would eat that. Because he understood it's non-different than Jagannath. It can't be contaminated. It's completely pure. He understood that. He understood it was completely sacred. We may not want to eat off someone else's plate. Maybe the guru's plate, but not our godbrother's plate. Because we don't yet fully understand that the Mahaprasad is non-different than the Lord. We know it intellectually. We have some information from Guru and Shastra that's non-different than Lord Jagannath, non-different than Radha and Krishna, but we don't live it, not yet. We're not at the platform where we can eat that prasad. But Raghunath Das, he was eating the prasad that the people had, taken and hadn't finished and had left it. And that prasad he would eat. So renounced, because he had such a deep understanding of our tattva, our bhakti yoga tattva. So this renounced life greatly pleased Sarup Damodar Goswami and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When they saw how renounced Raghunath Das was, they were so joyful, such a wonderful devotee. They were so happy, so pleased, and they were just giving him so much ashirvad and blessings. One day, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took by force some of the same food that Raghunath Das had collected from that was left over by other people, and he was eating. Mahaprabhu came and he said, "Give me some of that maha maha," and he was eating it off the plate of Raghunath Das Goswami. He was so pleased with Raghunath Das for his deep understanding and his renunciation. So basically, we didn't even get a chance to speak. Time is up. We didn't get a chance to speak about Krishnadasa Kaviraja Goswami. But we can say a little bit quickly that after Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left the association of the devotees in Puri, returned back to his eternal abode, Raghunath Das, of course, was devastated. And so he went to Vrindavan to associate with the devotees there, the 6 Goswamis. And, so there was 5 Goswamis, and then he came, so now there's 6 Goswamis. And he was very happy there to take the association of Rupa and Sanatana Goswami. And he was very happy to share all his memories of pastimes with Gauranga Mahaprabhu. He was so happy. So this was a great service for Raghunath Das Goswami, that he was able to share the pastimes that he witnessed because he was a servant of Sarup Damodar Goswami. So he was always there when nobody else was there. And so Krishnadasa Kaviraj, he took shelter of Raghunath Das Goswami. You please tell me everything, all these things. We have to save it for posterity. We have to write it so that centuries later people will be able to appreciate all these pastimes of Gauranga Mahaprabhu that you were witnessed. So Krishnadasa Kaviraj Goswami, he was very elderly at that time, very, very old. Raghunath Das was much younger. But, he didn't even know if he would be able to finish Chaitanya Charitamrita. But hearing the memories of Gauranga Leela from Raghunath Das Goswami, Krishnadas became so enlivened, so full of energy, surcharged with spiritual energy, that he was able to keep writing and was able to finish the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So this just gives us a glimpse of some of these acharyas that we're following in parampara. We're following their same tattva that they were following. We're doing the same seva that they were doing. We're worshiping the Lord the way they were doing. We're chanting the glories, the Mahamantra like they were doing. Prabhupada has empowered us to come and live in the ashram and live the exact same lifestyle as these acharyas, of these pure devotees. And even though we're not pure devotees, we're living the same lifestyle as if we were pure devotees. And by living the same lifestyle as if we were pure devotees, we will become pure devotees. So one thing that we have to be careful of is dushtaman, our mind, is not our best friend. Krishna explains, your mind is your worst enemy if he's not your best friend. He's either your best friend or your worst enemy. So my mentality is like this, that although everyone loves to go out and make new devotees, the most important devotee we have to make is our mind. Because if our mind becomes a Vaishnava, then it will be very easy for us to become a pure devotee and go back home, back to Godhead. But if our mind doesn't want to be a Vaishnava and wants to engage in Indriya Tripti, then it will be a struggle for us. So we really have to learn to make the mind a devotee. So we have to go internally, like Raghunath Das Goswami. Externally it was one way, but internally he was completely surrendered. So what we do externally, this is called the Bahiranga Shakti. This is what we're doing. We're living the same lifestyle as the Acharyas. But internally, the Antaranga Shakti, are we living the same lifestyle internally as the Acharyas? This we have to ask ourselves. We have to make a sankalpa that I have to come to that platform, that internally I'm also living the same life as the Acharyas. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Are there any questions?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you very much for the very wonderful class. So, just on the last point you made, as to externally we may be living the life of the acharyas, but we need to internalize. So, how can we internally also live in that same mood as acharyas, and how can we come up to that stand?
Well, first thing is that Gauranga Mahaprabhu recommended that we always be in association of another devotee. Because when we're by ourselves, when we're alone, then we're associating with our mind. So even his personal associates, he did not like that they would be alone. They would always have to be with another devotee. So you would have sadhu sangha. So we should try to always be in the association of devotees and speak and remember Harikatha, Krishna Lila, studying Prabhupada's books, chanting the Mahamantra. We can chant, we chant our japa externally. But while you're doing any other service, let's say you're sweeping the floor or washing the pots, internally you could be chanting the Mahamantra. Your mind could be chanting Mahamantra. When you're walking, every step, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. When you go up the stairs, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. This is what I do. So my mind is always engaged, always connected to the holy name. Internally, because I want to make my mind a devotee. Because at the time of death, when you're on and all your limbs are useless and you can't do devotional service. The only thing you have left is your mind at the very last moment. So if your mind's a devotee and remembers the holy names, you go back to Krishna. But if your mind doesn't remember, then you're in deep trouble. So we really want to make our mind a Vaishnava. So that internal, that antaranga seva has to always be there. So strategy, some plan to engage the mind. Always, or hearing a class or something, so that the mind's engaged in Krishna Katha. So we have to make plans. We have to make a strategy to do that. If we do nothing, it's not going to happen by itself, that the mind becomes a Vaishnava. We have to make a plan. You have to become the guru of your mind, basically. Your mind has to become your shishya. TK? Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.